China sets an economic target of 4.5% to 5% for 2026. Hong Kong's role highlighted at the National People's Congress. And U.S. claims no plans to send land troops to Iran, but continues to attack ships. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The National People's Congress opened its annual session in Beijing this morning, with President Xi Jinping attending the opening meeting. In delivering the government work report, Premier Li Qiang said China has set its economic growth target for this year at between 4.5% and 5%. One of the focuses will be on domestic demand, aiming to stimulate consumption for sustained growth. Secure Ip reports from Beijing.
The 14th National People's Congress opened its fourth section on Thursday morning at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. President Xi Jinping and other party and state leaders attended the opening meeting. Premier Li Qiang delivered a government work report stating that the overall economic performance last year was stable, with a GDP growth rate of 5%. This year's target growth rate is lowered to between 4.5% and 5%, with the aim of establishing a solid foundation for future development. This target aligns with the broader vision for 2035 and corresponds with the long-term growth potential of the economy. Additionally, this year marks the beginning of the 15th five-year plan. Premier Li introduced a number of government initiatives and outlined 20 key benchmarks, including a commitment to double per capita GDP by 2035 as compared to 2020, reaching the level of moderately developed countries. The expenditure on research and development is expected to increase at an average annual rate of over 7%. In terms of technology development, the digital economy industry is projected to grow by 12.5%. Furthermore, domestic consumption will be a key focus this year. The government plans to boost consumption, investments, and grassroots income to enhance spending power. Li Qiang also mentioned that the overall strategy and the continuity of the policies should also be taken into consideration when implementing the 15th five-year plan. Sakurib, TVB News, Beijing.
The Premier's government work report says Hong Kong needs to better integrate into the national development. It also highlights Hong Kong's important role of maintaining close connections with the mainland and the world. Mosinai reports.
Chief Executive John Lee and his Macau counterpart Sam Ho-fai attended the opening meeting of the fourth session of the 14th National People's Congress in Beijing on Thursday morning. When delivering the government work report, Premier Li Qiang mentioned Hong Kong and Macau 3 times, including support for building an international technological innovation center in the Greater Bay Area.
Efforts will be made to pursue full integration between technological and industrial innovation. The Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei, and Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area will be built into international centers for scientific innovation. We will build them into world-class innovation engines.
Li also said the governance efficacy of Hong Kong and Macau needs to be strengthened.
We resolutely implement the policy of one country, two systems, and we will see that Hong Kong and Macau are administered by patriots so that Hong Kong and Macau can better integrate into and contribute to the country's overall development and ensure long-term prosperity and stability.
Henry Tan, a standing committee member of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, said the 15th five-year plan will continue to help the internationalization of Hong Kong. Nancy Ip, a Hong Kong deputy to the National People's Congress, said she hopes to contribute to the country's education sector under the 15th five-year plan. On social media, Chief Executive John Lee said he will lead the Hong Kong government in formulating a policy framework to align with the national 15th five-year plan. Lee said authorities have established preparatory groups that will complete the Hong Kong five-year plan within this year. Memus 9, TVB News.
We will have more stories on the National People's Congress later in the newscast. Overseas, Iran launched more missiles at Israel and U.S. bases as war in the Middle East enters a sixth day. Elsewhere, Senate Republicans voted down an effort to halt the U.S.'s participation in the conflict. The White House also said there are currently no plans to deploy U.S. troops in Iran. Diana Rall tells us more.
Israel announced multiple incoming attacks early Thursday in Iran, including a large-scale wave of strikes against infrastructure in Iran's capital, Tehran. The Israeli military said its air force struck and dismantled an armed ballistic missile launcher in the area of Qom that was ready to launch a missile towards the Israeli home front. It added, in addition, an aerial defense system was struck in Isfahan. This comes as Iranian state television said there was a new wave of attacks targeting Israel and U.S. military bases in the region. Back in Washington, Senate Republicans voted down an effort to halt U.S. President Donald Trump's war against Iran, demonstrating early support for a conflict that has rapidly spread across the Middle East with no clear U.S. exit strategy. The legislation known as a War Powers Resolution failed on a 47-53 vote tally.
But when the regime falls, and it's not if, it's when, the people of Iran will have a new chance, I hope, to start anew. I don't know what will happen, but I know it will be their decision. It's not our decision. America's not going to go in and run Iran. We're going to try to take down a terrorist regime that is bent on our destruction.
However, the White House said U.S. troops on the ground in Iran are not part of the plan for this operation at this time.
Well, they're not part of the plan for this operation at this time, but I certainly will never take away military options on behalf of the President of the United States or the Commander-in-Chief, and he wisely does not do the same for himself.
Meanwhile, sailors aboard the Iranian warship that was struck by a U.S.-fired torpedo off the coast of Sri Lanka were being treated in hospital. It is understood that up to 87 bodies were recovered while 32 were rescued. The attack was one of the few instances of a submarine sinking a ship since World War II. General TV News.
The Lebanese capital of Beirut and Iraq's Kurdish region are caught in the crossfire as the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran spirals. Turkey announced intercepting a missile launched from Iran and said it is working with NATO allies on carrying out necessary interventions against the threat. Danny Zhou reports.
Israel announced early Thursday that its military had begun pounding Hezbollah infrastructure in Beirut as its 24-hour deadline for Iranian officials to leave Lebanon expired. Sources say as many as 76 Israeli airstrikes hit eastern and southern Lebanon as well as Beirut's southern suburbs during the wee hours. 8 people were killed this morning, says Lebanon's official media, and an unspecified number of individuals are injured. Iranian military launched an operation targeting Kurds in the north of neighboring Iraq. Residents of Erbil, capital of the semi-autonomous Kurdish region, woke up to explosions from drones and missiles that shattered their windows. The attacks come amid reports that Iranian Kurdish armed groups had recently consulted with the U.S. about mounting an offensive on Iran's security forces. The governor of Erbil said on Wednesday that strikes on the region have exceeded 100 since the Iran war began on Saturday, and he urged Baghdad to compensate residents for collateral damage. Issuing a warning to prevent missile threats, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said his country is in close consultation with NATO allies to carry out their necessary interventions immediately. Earlier, a ballistic missile from Iran was intercepted by NATO defense systems as it headed towards Turkey's airspace. The incident had drawn condemnation from NATO. A spokesperson for the military alliance said they stand firmly with member states against Iran's indiscriminate attacks across the region. Meanwhile, stranded travelers from around the world remain in limbo in Gulf nations to wait for the airspace to reopen while they rearrange their trips. Emirates planes were grounded as smoke billowed from parts of Dubai following reports of missile interceptions. A couple from Belgium said they have repeatedly contacted airlines and even tried to reach out to embassies after the cancellation of their return flights. They eventually received temporary accommodation from a local company free of charge, which offers a respite for their newly blended family to spend extra time together.
I would say that the most helpful was local community and local people, because they really welcomed everyone who got stranded here in Dubai and suggested plenty of help.
Danny Zhou, TVB News.
In Beijing, Foreign Minister Wang Yi spoke to the United Arab Emirates Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister on the phone, stressing the red line on protecting civilians in conflicts must not be crossed. The UAE official briefed Wang on the situation in the Middle East and said the Emirates is not a party to the war and should not subject to illegal attacks. He He has pledged efforts to ensure the safety of Chinese personnel and institutions in the country. Wang reiterated China's principled position and said the spillover of war serves nobody's interests. Beijing is sending its special envoy to the Middle East, issued to conduct mediation efforts to help restore peace in the region. Wang added non-military targets tied to energy, economy, and people's livelihoods should not be targeted, while calling for safeguarding the security of shipping routes. And still ahead, Venezuelan government to cooperate with the U.S. on mining development. A trickle of flights returning to Hong Kong from the United Arab Emirates. And it is that time of the year to beat the villains. Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum met with Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, in the latest sign of Washington's intent to exercise control over the South American country's resources. Burgum leads the U.S.'s National Energy Dominance Council. He said Venezuela is a rich country filled with both oil and gas resources, but also rich in critical minerals. Burgum added that the more than 24 companies accompanying him on the trip are eager to work in Venezuela's mining sector. Rodriguez announced she will introduce a bill to change the country's mining law, which is expected to attract foreign investments. Polls opened in Nepal's first nationwide election since last year's youth-led uprising that forced the government from power. A candidate is former mayor of Kathmandu, Balendra Shah, who was a leading figure in the 2025 uprising that ousted former Prime Minister Khadga Prasad Ali, who is also running again. Shah's National Independent Party is considered the frontrunner in the election. Security forces patrolled streets and guarded polling stations as voters waited to cast their ballots. Counting of votes will begin later Thursday, with the results expected over the weekend. Now, back to our stories from the National People's Congress. Premier Li Qiang's work report noted that China has budgeted 1.91 trillion yuan in defense spending this year. The work report also emphasizes the necessity to strengthen the military and to resolutely combat the separatist forces advocating Taiwan independence. Samantha Lee has the details.
China's defense spending this year will increase by 7% to 1.91 trillion yuan. The increase is slightly lower than that of the previous year. Premier Li Qiang said China will uphold the Communist Party's absolute leadership over the military. He said the PLA will advance military training and war preparedness and accelerate the development of advanced combat capabilities, thereby enhancing the capacity to safeguard national sovereignty, security, and development interests. On Taiwan, Li said Beijing remains committed to deepening cooperation and integrated development across the Taiwan Strait. He said Beijing will firmly fight against Taiwan separatist forces while fostering the peaceful development of cross-strait relations. Underscoring the One China principle and the 1992 consensus, Li said the authorities will crack down on independence movements and oppose external interference. On foreign policy, the report noted that China's major country diplomacy has achieved new results, making significant contributions to promoting world peace and development. The report said this year China will adhere to an independent and peaceful foreign policy. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Premier Li Qiang's work report places considerable emphasis on innovation and technology, noting China will accelerate the development of high-level technological self-reliance. The report outlines plans to foster new engines of economic growth in emerging industries, such as quantum computing, embodied artificial intelligence, and 6G mobile networks. Samantha Lee again.
In line with the rapid development of technology in China, the work report highlights Beijing's commitment to science and technology. Stressing tech innovation and self-reliance, Premier Li Qiang calls for breakthroughs in core technologies. The report outlines the priorities for research and development, as well as the popularization of science and technology. Li said the government is expected to take the lead in investing in and nurturing emerging industries. State-owned enterprises are encouraged to explore applications to help foster new pillar industries, such as integrated circuits, aerospace, biomedicine, and the low-altitude economy. But some industry leaders said there are some current challenges. Lei Jing, founder and CEO of tech giant Xiaomi, said the shortage of computer chips creates a major bottleneck. Lei said with the surging demand for artificial intelligence, there is a severe global shortage of computer chips, and prices skyrocketed over the past year. He said this has put pressure on his firm's smartphone and related businesses, and they are exploring ways to minimize the impact on customers. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Some Hong Kongers previously stranded in the Middle East are slowly making their way back to the city, with the second batch of residents expected to land at the Hong Kong International Airport via an Emirates flight tonight. The aviation sector said the return was facilitated by the flight corridor arranged by the United Arab Emirates, but noted other airlines are still assessing the flight risk in Middle Eastern airspace. After being stranded in Dubai for 4 days and having experienced multiple ticket cancellations, Hong Kong resident Bo Yi successfully purchased an Emirates economy flight ticket and is expected to return to the city at around 10 p.m. today. She said she feels relieved after completing her check-in procedures, adding that she misses her cats waiting for her back home. Bo Yi believes she will avoid the Middle East for the time being and will consider taking direct flights if planning a trip to Europe in the future. Aboard the same flight will be 20 people traveling with tourism agency WWPKG and another 22 traveling with Wing On Travel. Since the start of the Iran conflict, several Middle Eastern countries have closed their airspace, posing a major challenge to the global aviation sector. But the United Arab Emirates has arranged a special flight corridor permitting flights to travel southward. The passage currently allows a maximum of around 40 flights per hour. Using a return flight from Dubai to Hong Kong as an example, the flight will initially travel towards the northeast and above the Gulf of Oman, before heading to the Arabian Sea and over India. With pilots opting for this route needing to fly an extra 200 kilometers, not all airlines are comfortable with this alternative.
So right now, there is a huge capacity issue because we cannot use the Russian airspace due to the ongoing conflicts between Ukraine and Russia. So a lot of the long-range and ultra-long-range flights, especially between Asia and Europe, are flying through a very narrow corridor between Afghanistan and Turkey onwards to their destination. So everybody is using the same airways or the invisible highways for aircraft in the sky. That becomes very congested, and on top of that, Afghani airspace is uncontrolled. What does that mean? They don't have air traffic controllers. Most importantly, we have the GPS jamming, which interferes with the aircraft navigation system.
Regarding the resumption of Cathay Pacific flights to Riyadh and Dubai, the city's flagship carrier said the suspension will last until at least the 14th of this month. A survey by the Mental Health Association of Hong Kong found that the depression and anxiety indices among Hong Kong people have reached record highs. Celine Chan tells us more.
The Mental Health Association of Hong Kong, along with the Chinese University of Hong Kong's Department of Social Work, interviewed 2,695 people through street booths and online questionnaires. The results showed that the overall average depression score reached 7.27, which is 0.9 points higher than the previous survey done in 2023 and the highest since the survey began in 2012. The proportion of people falling into the moderate to severe depression group was 13.1%, 2% higher than that of 2023. The overall average anxiety score also reached a record high of 5.9 points. Among all age groups, the mental health situation of Generation Z, those aged between 18 to 24, was the most worrying. 43.5% of them were affected by moderate to severe depression. Experts noted that while the cause of depression can be complex, data shows that depression scores are positively correlated to the average time spent using electronic screens. The survey also found that roughly 1/5 of the respondents would turn to artificial intelligence for help when they face emotional problems. Ching Chi Kong, an experienced psychiatrist, said relying solely on AI for help can be dangerous, as their findings suggest the levels of depression or anxiety will increase if people completely rely on AI, adding that establishing relationships with people is crucial in the process of healing. The organization also reminded the public that if they find themselves experiencing persistent emotional problems, they should proactively seek professional help. Celine Chan, TVB News.
Today marks the day of Jingzhe, or the awakening of insects, in traditional Chinese calendars. As per local tradition, many residents participated in the cultural custom of villain hitting. Some folks are welcoming the start of spring with villain hitting at this popular spot beneath the Canal Road flyover in Causeway Bay. According to traditional beliefs, villain hitting usually involves elderly women beating paper effigies of a client's target, which allegedly neutralizes the latter. The practice was brought over to Hong Kong from the mainland several centuries ago. Local historians said that villain hitting is especially popular during Jingzhe because many people believe the villain hitting custom can attack their enemies and the awakened insects at the same time. And that's the news. Thanks for watching.